I want to get in a minute to some of the specifics, like today, the head of the criminal division in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington resigning, about the resignations in New York over the Eric Adams case. But what you just said raises the question, which has been rooted about, let's say, by J.D. Vance in public, by Elon Musk in public. Well, what if we don't do what the courts tell us to do? We think we have a constitutional crisis now. We remember Richard Nixon obeyed the courts in turning over the Watergate tapes. But what happens if an entire executive branch refuses to do what it is constitutionally obliged to do, which is follow the guidance of the and decisions of the judiciary?
Right. So if that happens, we will be in a full-blown constitutional crisis. Even Richard Nixon, when the Supreme Court ordered him to turn over the White House tapes to the special prosecutor, he did that. He followed the court's order. If we reach the point where Donald Trump doesn't do that, we are in deep trouble. And J.D. Vance, who I always feel obligated to say no kin, we have the same last name, but we are not related in any way, shape, or form that I'm aware of. J.D. Vance is a Yale-educated lawyer. And for him to suggest that the executive branch doesn't have to follow the dictates of the courts is just shockingly irresponsible, and I think a real measure of the man. Fortunately, this is one area, and it's really one of the only examples of this that I can think of recently, where cooler heads seem to have prevailed. And a number of Republican senators made statements talking about the importance of the executive branch following the dictates of the courts. And after they made those comments, we saw the White House, instead of going, the J.D. Vance road and flouting court orders, we saw them instead file appeals. That's how this one case is already going to the Supreme Court. That, I think, is a really early and important marker of our path forward. And this same thing that I was writing about the other night in my newsletter, there was a lot of public outrage when J.D. Vance made those comments and Elon Musk made those comments about just ignoring courts, essentially saying we don't care about the courts. So much public outrage that it bled over into Republican senators who felt obligated to make statements. And then the White House got into line and filed appeals using the courts instead of ignoring them. I think that tells us something important. Donald Trump will push as far as he believes he can get away with. But when he understands that he's in trouble, that he's risking the end of his, sort of the cult of personality that lets him do a lot of the crazy things that he does, he will back off. And he clearly backed off here, at least for now. Our job is to keep that pressure up.